Yeah, Maud.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session of the third Gobeshona Annual Conference, which is focused on gender and early warning system in Bangladesh. This session aims at discussing the state of early warning system in Bangladesh, and we will focus on the importance of having a gender-responsive early warning system that includes everyone, especially women and people from the most marginalized group. And it's very relevant now as the flood and cycle season is getting closer. So this event is going to be both in Bangla and in English. You have the option to go into the English and Bangla room in one of the buttons that you will find below, close to the share screen option. And we will also have a Q&A session at some point during the session. But if at any moment you feel like you want to write down something, you have the option to do so in the Q&A section. So I will then give the floor now to Ms. Dilruba Haider, Program Specialist from UN Women, to give the welcome remark to this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maud. And once again, welcome everybody for joining this session on gender perspective of early warning in Bangladesh. It is, I think, a very important issue because I personally have been working in the field of disaster management for almost 25 years now. And I remember that we started talking about it. There are colleagues here, Ahmedul Haq and Qayyum Bhai and others who would, I think, agree with me that we have always been talking about early warning and how to make it more effective in terms of the timeliness and the content in terms of the message, how to make it more understandable by the community and be actionable. And we have come a long way, definitely, and we see how, the death rate has gone down significantly. But there is still a lot of work which needs to be done in terms of the messaging, in terms of reaching the last mile, and especially the women. So we have done a study which you will very soon hear about. UN Women has conducted a study on this about how early warning is reaching the women, especially the most marginal women living in the remotest areas, and also the women who are in the house, within the households, who don't go a lot outside. So there is all these differences of different groups, and how they receive the early warning, and what are the kinds of messages that they are getting, whether the messages that they are getting is enough for them to understand what they need to do as a matter of preparedness. So all those are very relevant because we know, because due to climate change, the disasters are becoming very frequent and severe. The severity of these are increasing by days. And, every year we are seeing nowadays flooding. The northern part at least are having, and in fact, there are years when, for instance, in 2021, the flooding in Kurigram had 4 spells in one monsoon season. So the early warning and reaching the early warning to the most vulnerable people in a manner which makes them capable or prepare themselves to face the crisis effectively is very, very important. So we are really happy that we are able to organize this event at Gobeshona Conference. and talk about the lessons that we have learned over the years, and how we can address more the needs of women and the most marginalized groups. So thank you all very much for joining the event. Over to Maud to take us through the program. Over to you, Maud.
Thank you very much for these words, Dilrubaba. So now we will see two videos about the Cyclone Preparedness Program of Bangladesh, also known as CPP, which is the flagship disaster management program of this country, and that has been globally recognized in the field of disaster management over the last 4 decades. This is a unique model which has more than 75,000 volunteers all across the country. So now we'll see the first video. So let's try it, if you may.
In Bangladesh, women were once identified as the most vulnerable to disasters, but that scenario is substantially changed. CPP, established by the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, is stepping in its 50th year. The organization is now recognized as a global role model. This achievement goes to the credits of all dedicated volunteers, including 27 life sacrifice souls. Today, 76,000 volunteers are working in this program, half of whom are women. The women volunteers, equipped with proper training and skill, are now ready to combat cyclones. It is an unprecedented development in gender equality. To bring this parity of women in CPP, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina inaugurated inclusion of new 18,505 women volunteers on International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction 2020. The widespread participation of women volunteers has led to a significant increase in mass awareness on cyclone preparedness in the coastal areas, particularly among the female population. As a result, the number of women and child deaths in cyclones has reduced remarkably. Women who used to be considered as the most vulnerable are now leading half of the response force. Transforming from a homemaker to a responder, CPP women volunteers are working as agents of change. Thus, Bangladesh is moving towards a gender-responsive, sustainable development.
Okay, so now that we've seen a little bit on women empowerment at the CPP, we are gonna hear about the study on gender and disaster early warning system in Bangladesh that was conducted under the National Resilience Program of UN Women. And Mr. Mohammed Abdul Qayyum, which is an expert on disaster risk reduction, will now present the key findings of this study. So if you please may have the floor now, Mohammed.
Yeah. Hey. Ito হচ্ছে না বড় হচ্ছে না স্ক্রিনটা Okay, thank you very much, Maud, for giving me the opportunity to present the study report. So the study was gender needs and effectiveness of disaster early warning system in Bangladesh. Next. Open.
Can you make it full screen?
The report is containing the content of the context of the study, objectives, methodology, demographic information, income, occupation, and asset, vulnerability of flood and cyclone, government and institutional arrangement for early warning generation and dissemination, effectiveness of warning system, factors affecting response, and
excuse me. excuse me, Mohammed, would it be possible
Yeah.
to show the presentation on the full screen so that we can see it more clearly, please?
Not clear to you?
No, could you please make the presentation in full screen so we can read properly what's written? The full screen option. You go next to the down.
Screen sharing. Okay.
আর এটা
And
ওই
on the
প্রেজেন্টেশন বোর্ডে দিতে
bottom
হবে
right.
বটম রাইট
You see
Bottom right
81% next to it.
enable করতে হবে বোধহয় না
Exactly.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karim.
It's okay now?
আরেকটা কাজ করতে হবে আপনার ইনেবল এডিটিং ওইটাকে দিয়ে নিতে হবে একদম উপরে দেখেন ইনেবল এডিটিং ওটা দিয়ে তারপরে যাবেন
Enable editing to the
Yes.
একদম উপরে দেখেন enable editing
আছে enable editing.
উপরে ইয়েলো বারটাতে আছে enable editing ওখানটাতে।
More.
protected view ওইটাতে আপনি ফলো করে যান ডান দিকে দেখেন আছে।
What is that? Enabling editing.
স্যার আপনার প্রেজেন্টেশনে
Who is it?
If you want, I can then.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right,
yeah. Click the yes.
It was okay.
স্যার শেয়ার अगेन স্যার দেখছি না আমরা
Yes, thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. Kayu?
I gotta say, yeah, I'm
Yeah, now it's all perfect. You can keep on with your presentation. Thank you very much.
I get selected.
Karim bhai, I think we are losing time, so
Absolutely.
try to finish the presentation
yeah.
within 20,
yeah.
25 minutes. Thank you so much.
No. Second again. Okay, in the context, we have seen that the Bangladesh it is told not only, but it is recorded that it is the seventh most vulnerable nation to climate change, and 2.2% of economic loss is of GDP due to disaster. So it is increasing, and in the sixth national plan, it was seen that 1.6, but it is now 2.2% of economic loss. Annual displacement of 700,000 people yearly, and annual spending per capita per head is 6,600 taka for Bangladesh. More than 70% of the population over 112 million people is exposed to climate-related shocks, floods, cyclones every year. Roughly 70 million people in Bangladesh live in flood-prone areas, 53% tropical cyclones, and where is claimed more than 5,000 lives occurred in Bangladesh on an average. According to UN Women, under which we are now working, is that 72% of the marginalized women are evicted from their normal dwellings during this disaster. 52% of women and girls are sexually and physically harassed in disaster shelters when they took shelter. 52% of women and girls face problem getting water for latrine purpose or hygienic purpose during disaster, in comparison to 38% of men and adolescent boys. In 74% of the cases, women did household work, where men contribute to only 18% of the cases.
Karim bhai,
Yeah.
I can't see the slides changing, or is it just me? Is everybody else able to see the slides being changed? The slides are
Kayum bhai,
changing.
if it's okay, we can share the screen on your behalf. That's okay.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Are you facing problem with? Slides so that
Just let us know when you need the slides to be changed.
no. National Resilience Program implemented by UN Women together with UNDP and UNOPS aims to sustain the resilience of human and economic development in Bangladesh through inclusive, gender responsive, and risk-informed development. This study highlights the gender inequality aspect of current disaster early warning system. Findings will lay the foundation to design and adapt intervention to respond to the specific challenges and the growing needs of the targeted communities for getting early warning during flood and cyclone. The objectives of this study was threefold. Number one, identifying existing and potential sources of disaster early warning and preparedness messages for women and other marginalized groups. Number two, assessing how effective current early warning systems are for recipients, especially the women and girls. And thirdly, providing recommendations for effective disaster early warnings for most marginalized groups and people of all age genders. Okay. How about people? Next. The methodologies, what methodology the researcher employed is that a mixed method is very good in nature, where the quantitative and qualitative survey was conducted. A total of 319 samples involved 4 startups representing women and 1 startup representing community men for comparison purpose. And among these 319, the division, the people were included in these 319. Among them are adolescent girls, 70 samples, marginalized women, 125 samples, and among these 125 samples, 34% was elderly people, female-headed 34%, and persons with disability 32%. Transgender person 26 samples and sex worker 20 samples. Out of these 28, the floating 53%, brothel-based 36%, and both 11%. Community men 70 samples. The survey was undertaken in 7 districts covering the flood-prone areas and cyclone-prone areas, riverbank erosion, everything. So it's a very good and geographical context. Khulna 15%, Jamalpur 14%, Noakhali 13%, Cox's Bazar 18%, Kurigram 16%, and Borishal 12%, and Patuakhali 12%. A total of 59 key informants interviews with relevant nationals and local level stakeholders, 31 in-depth interviews, and 24 focus group discussion with 250 participants. Data collection period was July 22 to August 22. This in KIIs and in-depth and focus group discussion is showing the researchers undertaken a very good mixture and tried their level best to find out the actual information from the community. Among the respondents, the average age is 15 years old, adolescent girls, 49 years old, marginalized women, 29 years old, sex workers, 26 years old, transgender person. The majority of study participants had no formal education. 66% of marginalized women, 54% of sex workers, and 50% of transgender person. Of the study location, Khulna 55%, Jamalpur 53%, Kurigram 52, and the highest rate of literacy, no schooling. 55% of surveyed adolescent girls and marginalized women were living with the elderly. Also, 50% of them said they have children at home. 60% of married sex workers were living with their husbands. Among those who had children, about 86% were living with their children. 62% of the surveyed transgender persons reported living with their community members, and 31% reported living with their families. Among the marginalized women respondents, 29% were financially active, 25% reported getting help from adult children, 46% of the elderly marginalized women were dependent on social safety nets, 33% of elderly respondents were not able to work, 55% of the women respondents with disabilities were not able to work. The majority of the respondents had only one source of income, 27% marginalized women in non-agricultural day labor, and 23% of adolescent girls in non-agriculture day labor. Income, occupation, and their respondents, having cow 18%, marginalized transgender person 4%, having television 9%, for marginalized women and transgender person 20%, 10% having goat, and 20% transgender person, and birds 56% for marginalized women and 28% for marginalized for transgender person, and having mobile telephone 82% marginal women and 92% transgender. The decision of the respondent to evacuate their homes during disaster may be related to their ownership of their homes. About 99% of the adolescent girls, 81% of marginal women, and 50% of sex workers were living in their own houses. Compared to other marginalized women, had less access to mobile phones. Also, of those who had access to it, the majority, 57% of them, did not have direct access to it.
Mr. Canyon?
Yeah, vulnerability to flood and cyclone. That's a very important one, and we have identified the vulnerability according to the damage, eviction, and recovery. For the intensity, 53% of respondents were affected by both cyclones and flood. 58% of experienced cyclones in the last year.
Who did?
In their houses, 46% experienced flood in the last month in their area. Damage too, for the vulnerability is that majority of the respondents reported flood submerged houses each year. Majority of transgender persons, 73%, and sex workers, 68%, were evicted from their normal dwellings during cyclones, because of the fact that they are living in very, very low quality land, so that in lowland, so when there is cyclone or flood, so these are easily prey to or easily damaged by this cyclone and flood. So they have to live there on dwelling houses. Eviction. Transgender persons and sex workers were more likely to seek shelter outside their homes during floods. Those who took shelter outside their home during flood, the majority of them reported staying outside for more than 15 days. Recovery. 50% of transgender persons reported that they needed more than 6 months to overcome the economic loss caused due to cyclone. Average monetary amount of recovery needed for the respondent, 17,451 after a cyclone and 19,567 after a flood. So there is a difference between, because cyclone is the flood is more severe because of the land erosion. Next. The institutional arrangement for early warning and dissemination. So, responsibility and authority, National Disaster Response Coordination Center, they have the responsibility to coordinate. Bangladesh Space Research and Remote Sensing Institute, SPARSO, is responsible generating the warning. District Disaster Management Committee, DDMC, at the district level, having the authority to disseminate and risk reduction. And Flood Forecasting and Warning Center, FFWC, is having the responsibility to generate and to coordinate. Bangladesh Meteorological Department is the most important one of the important, is to generate information and monitoring the condition. Cyclone preparedness program, as we in the initial, we are watching the video. The CPP volunteer is to disseminate and to reduce risks.
Taimba, are you having trouble seeing the slides?
Yeah, some trouble is there, so technological problem. Effectiveness of early warning is which is most important part of the study, according to my understanding, is that how effective it is. So for the judging the effectiveness, we have again taken some dimensions of the effectiveness, is the accessibility, timeliness, reliability, and usefulness. So these are the dimensions of this effectiveness we have categorized here. So the accessibility is inclusivity, no problem, timeliness, enough time to plan and react to the crisis, reliability, reliable source of information, and usefulness, whether gender-specific needs are met or not. So we'll be now analyzing this one. According to the accessibility, accessibility, only 65% of the target respondents had access to information on the imminent flood, whereas 96% had access to early warning for cyclones. And here you see the cyclone early warning dissemination is better than flood early warning. Among the respondents groups, adolescent girls reported 48% having less access to flood early warnings. Most of the surveyed respondents relied on in-person and secondary communication sources of information for receiving early warnings. Announcement, miking in the local bazaars, markets. So there's an announcement from the UDMC, Union Disaster Management Committee, and the volunteers, they undertake the miking. Single-headed household marginalized women, 43% get this announcement. Sex worker, 35%, mostly with floating sex workers. Transgender person, 31%. Still, we see a lot of people are outside this miking system of announcement. Local announcement in the community area. Elderly women, 72%, and women with disabilities, 63%. Television for adolescent girls, 83%, who is one of the highest because of the television availability. Receiving warnings through mobile phones, sex worker, 53%, transgender person, 44%. Community men relied on formal sources such as television, 38%, community reader, 34%, and mobile phone, 34%, to get cyclone early warning. Timeliness. Transgender person and sex workers were in the worst situation in getting timely warnings for cyclone preparedness. Received warning less than 6 hours before. Respondents from Cox's Bazar, 75%. Less than 6 hours. Reported receiving and warning late before cyclones compared to other districts. Marginalized women also lacked direct access to mobile phones, relied on informal sources for warning, limiting timely disaster preparedness. Reliability. Community disaster management volunteers, most reliable sources for marginalized women groups for disaster early warning. So this is the area where in future designing of the early warning system, we have to say that for the reliability, the community disaster management volunteers is the most reliable source of early warning. However, 48% of the surveyed women and adolescent girls preferred television over any other sources. Usefulness. The last one is the different shelter preferences varied across groups. Shelter centers, sex workers 74%, transgender person 57%, relatives house marginal women 23%, and adolescent girls 20%. Availability of asset at home was a major determinant of preparation for living for shelter. Elderly women and women with disability need 1 full day to move out of their houses for taking shelter. 72% of women from single-headed households were solely responsible for preparing the household necessities before leaving home. The early warnings were not disseminated considering the target group's gender needs. The message regarding women and girls' safety, secure rehabilitation, available facilities in shelter centers, and health sanitation-related information. These are the lacking we find in this study. No. Factors affecting response. The early warning is not only think how the factors affecting the response. 59% of the marginal women preferred not to leave their houses as they had to protect their property and asset at home. This is a very important factor in Bangladesh, why people are not taking shelter, the shelter house. Due to lack of safety and gender-friendly environment in shelter center, adolescent girls reported feeling safe at home, 78%, rather than going outside their home during cyclones. Women and men distinct roles in response, with men tending towards leadership roles and women focusing on caregiving roles. As a result, women's response to disaster preparation became dependent and delayed as a result. As the evacuation routes were not suitable for vulnerable groups such as people with disabilities, 22%, and elderly women, 11%, they did not prefer to go outside their home even after receiving early warnings. 39% of women reported they faced technical difficulties in understanding the early warning message during cyclone and flood. Recommendation. This is the most important part of the study. The early warning dissemination theme area recommendations: seek out existing networks and organizations. Reasons: know the needs, challenges, and opportunities existing within the community and provide insight into reaching the target population in the best possible way. Incorporate different channels of communication for different population, accessible and convenient to certain people. Context-specific, priority-based, and gender-sensitive warning dissemination, because they help the most vulnerable women reach shelters as early as possible. Subsidize digital devices for marginalized women. Increase accessibility through affordable devices. The theme area is enabling knowledge and digital capability. Digital literacy for marginalized women for proper comprehension of digital communication. Inclusion of disaster preparedness related information in curricula. Increase adolescents' risk, knowledge, and capacity development. The theme area is empowering community volunteers. Recommendation are comprehensive training on gender, more active engagement of women volunteers, ensuring adequate equipment, raincoats, torches, transportation, hand mics, etc. for CPP volunteers. Sensitizing relevant local authorities through training. Reasons: respond to specific needs of different groups accordingly, convince and reach women faster, reach the most vulnerable areas to disseminate warnings, and establish gender-sensitive risk reduction mentality from the operational perspectives. Enabling local ecosystem, involved of local community, prepare socially and culturally appropriate content of warnings and preparedness messages, meeting the needs of local communities. I think this is all from my part of the study report I am presenting. Thank you for patient hearing. Over to Maud.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mohamed Qayyum, for this presentation. if if any of the participants has any question, feel free to write them in the Q&A section. I can see that we already have one, so I highly encourage you to write them over there. Now we will have a panel discussion with 4 of our honorable guests. And this discussion is going to be moderated by Dilruba Haider. Our guests are Mr. Hamadou Ake, who is the director of the Cyclone Preparedness Program, and Mr. Mola Shaki, who is an expert on community-based disaster risk reduction, Advocate Kodesa Nasrin, who is a member of the Standing Committee of the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change, and Mrs. Sayeda Yasmin, which is the chef executive or the Association for Alternative Development in Kurigram. So now I would let Dilruba Haider moderate and start this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maud. And thanks a lot to Kayum Bhai for a very detailed presentation of the study. I know there were a lot of data, and it was very difficult, should be very difficult to, internalize all those and remember all those data. But it gives a sort of a glimpse of the, at least an overview, if you may, of the situation in terms of reaching the early warning to the most disadvantaged groups of the society. So now with the panel discussions, we first would go to Mr. Ahmedul Haq. He's the director of Cyclone Preparedness Program, which is in fact the flagship disaster preparedness program in the country, and in fact a unique one globally, because this nowhere in the world we have like 76,000 plus volunteers, which we now have throughout the coastal belt of the country. Which was set up right after the liberation war of the country. So over to Ahmedul Haq Bhai. Ahmedul Haq Bhai, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation or your speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Struggling, but I will try to make it in time. Okay. Gender responsive or gender perspective of early warning system in Bangladesh. It is very timely topic. I must thank to ICAT and UN Women for arranging this workshop. Since last few years, Bangladesh government, specifically Cyclone Preparedness Program, is being undergone a changing process. One is multi-hazard switching from a single hazard, and another is women or gender concerns. You may heard we are in a significant progress in women empowerment, which already honored as United Nations Public Service Award in 2021. We call it WeCPP, Women Empowerment in CPP. A part of that bigger drive is women-friendly early warning dissemination guideline. I am going to present here. They actually, why? Most of the question is actually, I found in Kayum sir's presentation, that Kayum sir's presentation or NRP study made to 2020 so far I seen. But our drive, actually our study a little bit earlier, we made it in 2019. So these are the basic question. Why? I will not go through in detail. Our women empowerment drive was actually three-dimensional: capacity enhancement, which include quantitative and qualitative measure, then participation and leadership. All are women volunteer concerns. Then our implementation flow is like that: policy intervention. We made some policy documents or revised or reconstructed some policy guidelines. Then in a quantitative approach, we made parity and enhancement of leadership, qualitative, that is training, motivation, role assessment, and other consideration. The bottom left is the women-friendly early warning dissemination. That I am going to with you in this following slides. Actually, what gaps I found most of our gaps are matched with the NRP study. Man-filtered message is one of our gap we found. Accessibility issue, women role issue, practice and perception. There is some is in practice, some is in perception. I've seen one data in the earlier slides of the NRP presentation, that is 50% of women are facing gender-based violence in shelters. Actually, this is, I strongly deny the actually statistics. It is mostly in perception problem. Anyway, these are some practice and perception issues. Engagement and participation issues are also there. They are not, women volunteers are not in that height to as responsible for cyclones. They have difficulty to actually work in a big area. Women and girls hardly representing in the meeting in different committees. Then social norms. This is very important. Women are primarily considered as early warning, a recipient of early warning or recipient of service, not the service provider. And in normal time, their potentialities are not considered in disaster management. And social other norms are also not congenial for women to work in disaster scenario. I have shown the matrix, the guideline gaps and guideline implementation suggestion and how far we achieve. Women volunteers alongside their male counterparts should be engaged in dissemination of early warning system. It is already we are being practiced. They should be trained, training and motivation. Our different, actually we have incorporated our training curriculum, different module that actually addressing the motivation also. Motivation to take challenging works. Women volunteers actually should be equipped with the gears that also INRP presentation we have already implemented. All women, new women volunteers are equipped with proper volunteer gears. Most of our early warning system, our cyclone early warning system was also a big component is flag hoisting. Most of the flags hoisted in common areas that are not accessible or readable or visible by women. We actually incorporated our women-friendly early warning dissemination system to make more women reachable. Social warning, special warning should be given the guardians or able members in case there is a pregnant woman or disabled person. We have made actually standard early warning message template. All are incorporated in that template. Then relevant words, that is text to encourage women and girls to evacuate to shelters. It is a very good recommendation I found in NRP study. We have also incorporated this text in our standard early warning message templates. Same assurance of security of assets and property of people. Same, we have incorporated this context also in our early warning message. Then one immediate implementation guideline we have found to women to represent women to give role in cyclone shelters, particularly area where women and girls are staying. We think we cannot alone do this. We require more advocacy. Same, they should provide all services to the women and girls, early warning, dissemination, evacuation, vulnerable. Any other, these are also we require more advocacy. Then some guidelines for midterm implementation. The policy and practice of CPP should reflect gender concern. We are already reconstructed our volunteer guideline in 2021 that well reflected the gender aspects. The number of women volunteers should be increased. Yes, I'm two more slides. Two more slides. Leadership. We have actually brought parity in numbers. That was you may have seen in the video. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina inaugurated that women drive. Or some other that is very important is that volunteers should play active roles in mock drills. We have already been practiced these things. then a pool of potential. Actually, we are making some relation with gender responsive DRR. These all are in designing stage. And one important thing, case studies of successful women leadership on disaster management should be documented. We have very good publication and audio visuals content we have already implemented this. The CPP should have continued engagement with the leaders, actually relation with the community. These are also being implemented. That's all. Actually, what we are in women empowerment in CPP, this is all about, but our main motto is women empowerment in all DRR, all disaster risk related. Thank you very much.
Thank
Over
you
to
very
Maud.
much, Amit Bhai. Thank you very much. This was all about cyclone. So we will now go to flood. So I will now request Moloy Chaki, who has been working on community-based disaster management for years. We know that especially with regards how to make early warnings reaching the most marginalized people, and in a way that is more understandable for the people. So over to Moloida for sharing your experience, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Dilruba. Within 5 minutes, I'm trying to summarize my discussion. First, I would like to thank UN Women for giving me the opportunity to speak on today's thematic issue on gender responsive disaster early warning system. Actually, almost last more than 20 years, I'm trying to contribute in strengthening flood warning at community level. And sorry, I don't have any PowerPoint presentation. And as practitioner, I'm trying to draw the gaps of gender responsive disaster early warning on the basis of my field experience. So I think we all are aware that any warning system has two parts. One is the message generation, and another part is very much related to the dissemination. So ensuring early warning to the most marginalized or the vulnerable groups along with the women, which is very much related with the dissemination system. So that's why I'm trying to focus my discussion on the dissemination gap first. So dissemination gap first, I want to include first one thing, that is policy gaps, policy guideline gaps. For cyclone, we have very good, excellent system, cyclone warning dissemination. But in the case of flood, we have huge policy direction gaps. Amidul Hasan Bhai, that when cyclone warning form kore jokon signal number 4, we have clear instruction at national level to down level, which organization will do what. So there is a very clear instruction is there. But in the case of flood, there is no clear direction when the national level will push the local level for the dissemination of flood warning at the local level. So there is a huge gap. Even 2019, we revised the SOD. That time also that issue that ignored. So we have many pilot project experience. We implemented projects with government, even under the project of comprehensive disaster management program. We implemented project for flood preparedness program, and also implemented many projects with other donors. But we learned many experience. But during that time, when we upgrade the 2019 SOD, it take a consideration ana hoyni. And second thing, second thing, that absence of responsible organization like CPP. Cyclone dissemination ground level, excellent because due to the CPP. CPP 76,000 volunteers responsible for disseminating messages to the community level. But in the case of flood, এরকম কোনো responsible organization আমরা এখনো identify করতে পারিনি. But unfortunately, we identified Answer VDP as a sustainable organization during the year 2000 or 2001. And after that, we implemented many projects, pilot projects, by involving the Answer VDP. And those projects are also successful. Under the project of Comprehensive Disaster Management Program 2, Phase 2, even we implemented project with Answer VDP and JAXA of Japan at the Kurigram, Romari, and Islampur of Jamalpur. Even we implemented project with AIT and DDM. All projects involved Answer VDP. But unfortunately, when we designed the NRP project last time, completely ignored the Answer VDP. Because Answer VDP, প্রত্যেকটা গ্রামে, they have their 2 platoon volunteers, 1 female and 1 male. And they have, each platoon, they have 32 members. They have union team leader, they have Upazila team leader, and they have the office at the Upazila level, and they have also the different training unit. Even nationally, they have other establishments. But we somehow ignored that Answer VDP last time. So that is another missing, and I think which is very important gap. Another, the lack of women volunteers. Already CPP, ওদের প্রত্যেকটা ইউনিটে 20 মেম্বার্স এর মধ্যে 50-50 রেশিও করে ফেলেছে, which is just we can say now it is start. But flood এর ক্ষেত্রে nothing, no volunteer, এবং সেখানে তো ফিমেলরা কোনো কিছু নেই ওখানে। এবং another problem, that is mindset not for the flood prone areas, also Amedul by cyclone prone areas. Last 2 years before, when we conducted some training sessions at Teknaf on behalf of the even women and the Department of Women and Child Affairs, we found that so many women volunteers are there, but during the session they try to say still the logistic supports and material supports mostly goes to the women. And during the cyclone time period, তাদেরকে ইনভলভ করা হয় না, মোস্টলি মেল ভলেন্টিয়ার যারা, তাদেরকে ইনভলভ করা হয়। এবং আমরা প্রশ্ন করেছি ওয়াই। সো অথরিটি বলার চেষ্টা করেছে বিকজ উইমেন হ্যাভ লট অফ লিমিটেশনস, দ্যাটস ওয়াই ডিউরিং ডিজাস্টার আমরা তাদেরকে ডিসেমিনেশনে আমরা ইনভলভ করি না। সো এটা লোকাল লেভেল মাইন্ডসেট। আমি জানি দ্য সিপিপি ডিরেক্টর উনি খুবই পজিটিভ চেঞ্জেসের পক্ষে, তো এই মাইন্ডসেট গুলো এক ধরনের ব্লক করছে এখনো পর্যন্ত ভলেন্টিয়ারদেরকে কাজ করার ক্ষেত্রে। আরেকটি হচ্ছে যে ওয়ার্নিং মেসেজ যেটা আমরা দিচ্ছি, সেই ওয়ার্নিং মেসেজ নট জেন্ডার ফ্রেন্ডলি। দ্য risk related to the women, children, elderly people, or the persons with disabilities are not rightly considered in the message, because the national message এটা কিন্তু একটা জেনারিক মেসেজ, এখানে এটা আসে না, but it should be decoded at the local level by the local level authority, which is very very important. এবং এটা যদি করা হয় তাহলে পারে এটা সম্ভব। আরেকটা গ্যাপ আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছে যে মাস মিডিয়ার রোল এন্ড রেসপন্সিবিলিটিস। ইন দ্য কেস অফ সাইক্লোন ফ্রিকুয়েন্টলি মাস মিডিয়া, টেলিভিশনের সামনে যদি আমরা বসি, টেলিভিশন রেডিও ফ্রিকুয়েন্টলি ডিসেমিনেট করে দ্য মেসেজেস, কোথায় আছে সাইক্লোন, কত দূরে আছে, হোয়েন ইট ক্যান বি ল্যান্ডফল হতে পারে, কখন, ইত্যাদি বিষয়। বাট ইন দ্য কেস অফ ফ্লাড, more than the warning message, flood সিচুয়েশনটাকে বেশি ফোকাস করা হয় মিডিয়াতে। ইনান্ডেটেড হয়েছে কুড়িগ্রাম, ইনান্ডেটেড হয়েছে অমুক জায়গা, ইনান্ডেটেড হয়েছে এতটা ইউনিয়ন, বাট শুধুমাত্র আমরা যেটা দেখি ডিউরিং দ্য নিউজ, হয়তো ফ্লাড ফোরকাস্টিং এর ওয়ার্নিং সেন্টারের এক্সিকিউটিভ ইঞ্জিনিয়ার সে কিছু কথা বলে ফোরকাস্ট বা ওয়ার্নিং নিয়ে, হুইচ ইজ অ্যাকচুয়ালি ফর দ্য গ্রাউন্ড লেভেল পিপল এটা অ্যাক্সেসেবল না, এবং এটা সেটা বুঝতে পারে না সে। এবং ফাইনালি আমি যেটা বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে যে inadequate initiative for capacity enhancement and awareness raising. আমি জেন্ডার রেসপন্সিভ আর্লি ওয়ার্নিং সিস্টেম নিয়ে যদি কথা বলতে চাই, তাহলে এখানে প্র্যাকটিশনার যারা আছে ডেফিনেটলি তাদেরকে এটা সম্পর্কে সেন্সিটাইজ করতে হবে। আমিদুল ভাই অলরেডি বলেছেন যে তাদের ট্রেনিং কোর্সের ভিতরে এবং অলরেডি তারা এই মেসেজ ডিকোডিং এর ক্ষেত্রে তারা অলরেডি কাজ শুরু করেছে। তো এই জায়গাগুলোতে প্র্যাকটিশনার যারা আছে, ডিজাস্টার ম্যানেজমেন্ট কমিটির লোকাল লেভেল যারা আছে, আমার মনে হয় যে তাদেরকে ক্যাপাসিটি বাড়ানো দরকার এবং এটার সম্পর্কে একটা অ্যাওয়ারনেস আরো বাড়ানো দরকার। সো আমার ফাইনাল রিকমেন্ডেশন যেগুলো হচ্ছে, নাম্বার 1 যে পলিসি গাইডলাইনে ফ্লাড আর্লি ওয়ার্নিং ডিসিমিনেশনকে কনসিডার করে স্পেসিফিক ডাইরেকশনস এটা ইনক্লুড করতে হবে। ইমিডিয়েট যদি এসওডির মধ্যে আনা সম্ভব নাও হয়, ইফ ইট ইজ পসিবল একটা প্রজ্ঞাপন করে এটাকে আমরা করতে পারি। যারা এই ধরনের কাজ করেছে তাদেরকে নিয়ে একটা ওয়ার্কিং গ্রুপ করে এটা করা যেতে পারে। সেকেন্ড হচ্ছে উইমেন ভলেন্টিয়ারদের সংখ্যা বাড়াতে হবে এবং একটা স্পেসিফিক অর্গানাইজেশন, ইফ ইটস পসিবল, আনসার ভিডিপি কে যদি অ্যাসাইন করা যায়, আবার যদি ট্রাই করা যায়।
quickly.
Yes, quick. I have more 3 points also. এবং অনলি, এবং সেটা সম্ভব হতে পারে। এবং জেন্ডার রেসপন্সিভ ওয়ার্নিং মেসেজ কিভাবে এটা ডিকোড হতে পারে সেটা সম্পর্কে প্রত্যেককে জানানো যেতে পারে। মাস মিডিয়াকে মোটিভেট করা যেতে পারে সো দ্যাট ডিউরিং ফ্লাড তারা ওয়ার্নিং মেসেজটাকে ডিসেমিনেট করে। এন্ড ফাইনালি ট্রেনিং অ্যাওয়ারনেস প্রোগ্রামটাকে আরো স্ট্রেনথেন করা এই বিষয়ে। Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Molaida. I know the depth of knowledge that Amidul Haq Bhai and Molay Chaki have. It's very difficult for you people to, limit your talk within 5 minutes. But in any such webinars, we are limited by the time availability. And it's a 1.5 hour session altogether. So our next panelist is our Honorable MP, Advocate Khodiza Nasreen Akhtar, and she is the member of Parliamentary Standing Committee for Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And we are very, very happy and honored that the MP has joined us as a panelist in today's event. So over to you, Khodiza Appa. To share your experience from your own constituency, how you see women's issues are with regards flooding and river erosion. You said that in your constituency you have a river erosion problem. So how do you see the women being suffering or having issues with regards these disasters, and what you think should be done to alleviate the problems of women? Over to you, Khodiza Appa.
ধন্যবাদ। শুনতে পাচ্ছেন তো? ধন্যবাদ।
Haji, শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
ধন্যবাদ মিসেস দিলরুবা হায়দার, প্রোগ্রাম স্পেশালিস্ট ইউএন ওমেন। আজকে যে বিষয়টি, যে অগ্রিম সতর্কতা বিষয়টি, তো আমি যে আমার যে সংসদীয় এলাকা রাজবাড়ী, যে আমাদের নদী, পদ্মা নদীর পরিবেষ্টিত আমাদের এই জেলাটি, এখানে বন্যা, ঝড় এবং বিশেষ করে নদী ভাঙনটি দ্বারা আমাদের বেশি এই অঞ্চলটি আক্রান্ত হয়ে থাকে। তো যেটা আমি বলবো যে আমাদের এর সাথে একটি নদী ভাঙনের সাথে যে আমাদের নারীরা সম্পৃক্ত থাকে, সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের যে নদী ভাঙনটা আসলে এটিতে সম্পূর্ণ একটি ভৌগোলিক কারণে আমাদের দেশটিতে ঝড়, বন্যা, জলোচ্ছ্বাস উপকূলবর্তীতে বেশি চাপ থাকে। তো সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা নদী পরিবেষ্টিত, পদ্মা নদী পরিবেষ্টিত আমাদের যে জেলাটি, সেখানে আমরা নদী ভাঙনের প্রকটতাই বেশি দেখি। তাৎক্ষণিকভাবে এটা তো হঠাৎ অনাকাঙ্ক্ষিত মধ্যরাতে হয়ে যায়। তো অনেকে তখন, বেশিরভাগই মানুষ গৃহহারা হয়ে থাকে। তাৎক্ষণিকভাবে তারা অবস্থান নেয় আমাদের চর অঞ্চলে। সেখানে তারা অবস্থান নেয়। আর এখানে যারা থাকে তারা সাধারণত নিম্ন আয়ের লোকই, শ্রমজীবী লোকই ব্যক্তিরাই এখানে অবস্থান নিয়ে থাকে। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের যে তাৎক্ষণিক যে বিশেষ করে এই যে সামনে আমাদের বর্ষা মৌসুম যে আসবে, তো আমাদের পানি উন্নয়ন বোর্ড থেকে যেটা একটি সতর্কবার্তা থাকে যে এই আমাদের ভয়াবহ যে ভাঙনটি হবে, তো তখন সরকারি পক্ষ থেকে যেমন এটার ইয়ে তাগিদ থাকে, এবং যে বিশেষ করে যারা যখন অবস্থান নেয় চরে, যে তখন তাদের জন্য টিনের ব্যবস্থা করা হয় বা গৃহের জন্য টিনের ব্যবস্থা করা হয়, শুকনো খাবার বরাদ্দ থাকে, এবং পুনর্বাসনের জন্য পুনর্বাসনের ব্যবস্থা তখন তাৎক্ষণিকভাবে নেওয়া হয়। তো আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী জননেত্রী শেখ হাসিনা, তিনি নারী বান্ধব নেত্রী। তিনি এই যে আমাদের সিভিএফ এর সভাপতি ছিলেন। তো এখন আমাদের যে যে দুর্যোগ কবলিত যে আমাদের ভৌগোলিক কারণ দেশটি, তো সেখানে তিনি অনেক আন্তরিক এবং বিভিন্ন বিষয়ে তিনি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ব্যবস্থা নিয়ে থাকেন। তো আমরা বলবো যে এখন আজকে যে আয়োজন, যে ICCAD ও IUB এবং গবেষণা গ্লোবাল কনফারেন্সে আমরা ইতিমধ্যে অনেক অভিজ্ঞতা সম্পন্ন ব্যক্তির বক্তব্য শুনেছি, যে এটাকে আরো যুগোপযোগী করার জন্য আমরা পাশাপাশি সরকারের পাশাপাশি যিনারা ব্যবস্থা নিয়েছেন, এটা আমরা অবশ্যই আন্তরিক। কারণ যেটি বলা হয়েছে যে মহিলা স্বেচ্ছাসেবকদের নিয়োগ করা, তারপরে কাউন্সিলিং করা, যেমন অনেক সময় উপকূলবর্তী যে যখন দুর্যোগটা আসে, তখন অনেক মহিলাদের সেই মেসেজটা, যারা যে একটা সরকারি যে থাকে যে এখনই সতর্কবার্তা থাকে, তারা এটাকে গুরুত্ব অনেক সময় দেয় না। যেমন আশ্রয়ন, আমাদের দুর্যোগকে মোকাবেলা করার জন্য আমাদের আশ্রয়ন অনেক ব্যবস্থা আছে। এবার এটির মধ্যে অনেক উপকূলবর্তী অনেক ওই দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলা করার জন্য, অবস্থান নেওয়ার জন্য অনেক বিল্ডিং করা হয়েছে। সেখানে তারা দেরকে যেতে হবে, বা এই যে তাদেরকে যে এই দুর্যোগটাকে মোকাবেলা করার জন্য তারা হয়তো মনে করে এটা আমাদের পৈতৃক সম্পত্তি, কিন্তু যে তাৎক্ষণিক কোনো একটি জলোচ্ছ্বাস, বন্যা জনিত কারণে তারা যে জীবনটা তো আগে জীবন, তারপরে না তাদের প্রয়োজনীয় বিষয়টা মৌলিক চাহিদাগুলো, এই বিষয়গুলো তাদেরকে আরো যদি কাউন্সিলের মাধ্যমে, তারপরে মহিলাদের, বিশেষ করে মহিলাদের কাছে যখন মহিলারা যাবে, তখন বিষয়টি তাদেরকে আরো বেশি করে যখন প্রোভাইড করবে, আমি মনে করি এটা একটা ইতিবাচক দিক। এটা যদি ক্রমান্বয়ে আরো একটু বৃদ্ধি করা হয়, তাহলে আমাদের মানুষরা অনাকাঙ্ক্ষিত মৃত্যুর হাত থেকে বাঁচবে। এবং এটা যদি আরো বর্ধিত হয়, আমরা এটাকে ইতিবাচক ভাবে নিব। কারণ সরকারের পাশাপাশি যারা এই যে উদ্যোগগুলো নিবেন, তাদেরকেও আমার আন্তরিক ধন্যবাদ থাকবে। যে আমাদের পানি উন্নয়ন বোর্ড ইতিমধ্যে আমাদের জেলা ভিত্তিক যে কথাটা জানতে চাইলেন, 2021 সালে ভয়াবহ নদী ভাঙন হয়েছে। আমি মাননীয় মন্ত্রী মহোদয়ের সাথে পরিদর্শনে গিয়েছিলাম। ইতিমধ্যে পানি উন্নয়ন বোর্ড আমাদের একটি অর্থায়ন করেছে। আর আমি এই মার্চ মাসের 8 তারিখে আমি পরিদর্শনে গিয়েছিলাম, যে ওখানে হ্যাঁ ব্লক দেওয়া হচ্ছে এবং কাজ চলমান। আমি দেখেছি যে এটা যে আমাদের আগামী বর্ষা, আমরা মনে করি যে এই নদী ভাঙনটাকে আমরা মোকাবেলা করতে পানি উন্নয়ন বোর্ড কর্তৃক বা আমাদের মন্ত্রণালয় থেকে আমরা আশা করি যে এটা মোকাবেলা করতে আমরা সক্ষম হব। তো আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী শেখ হাসিনা, তিনি অনেক আন্তরিক। তাৎক্ষণিকভাবে তখনই আমাদের নদী ভাঙনকে মোকাবেলা করার জন্য আমাদের যে একটা টিম পাঠিয়েছেন এবং একটা বরাদ্দ দিয়েছেন, আমি মনে করি এটি আমাদের রাজবাড়ীবাসীর জন্য অনেক বেশি পাওয়া। এবং আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী আন্তরিক বলে আমরা এটা সুরক্ষা অবশ্যই পাবো। আর যেটা বলবো, যে আপনারা যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছেন যে নারীর প্রতি আমাদের নারীদের একটু অসচেতনতা অনেক বেশি থাকে, বিশেষ করে যারা শ্রমজীবী মানুষ, তাদের ভিতরে একটা কাজ করে যে আমাদের পৈতৃক ভিটা আমরা কেন ছেড়ে যাব। এই যে তাদের বর্ষার পূর্ববর্তী অবস্থানে যাওয়ার আগে তাদেরকে আরো কাউন্সিলিং করা উচিত, বা করার জন্য যে পদক্ষেপগুলো আসছে, সেটা তো তাদের সুরক্ষার জন্য এটি তাদেরকে বোঝাতে হবে যে তুমি যখন আবার সবকিছু স্বাভাবিক হবে, তখন তোমার জায়গা তুমি ফিরে পাবে। এইভাবে তাদেরকে যদি আমরা সুরক্ষা দিতে পারি, সেটা আমরা আমাদের, যেমন ইতিমধ্যে বলবো, মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী জাতির পিতা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমানের জন্মশতবার্ষিকীকে তিনি আশ্রয়ণ প্রকল্প বিভিন্ন ধাপে দিয়ে আমি ইতিমধ্যে আশ্রয়ণ প্রকল্প পরিদর্শন করেছি। তারা যে দুস্থ মানুষ, অসহায় মানুষের সাথে জাতিপিতা যেমন ছিল তারই অনুসরণকারী, তারই যথাযোগ্য কন্যা মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী, তিনি যে আশ্রয়ণ প্রকল্প করে গৃহহারাদের যে একটি বাসস্থানের সুবিধা দিয়েছেন, শুধু পুরুষকেই দেয়নি, পুরুষ এবার মালিকানা সত্ত্বে পুরুষ এবং নারীকে অন্তর্ভুক্ত করে যে একটি বড় মনের অধিকারীটা দিয়েছেন, যে তাদের যে মালিকানা সত্ত্বটি যে সুদৃঢ় করেছেন, সেজন্য আমরা খুবই গর্বিত হই। কারণ অসহায় মানুষের সাথে আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী জাতির জনক বঙ্গবন্ধু ছিলেন, তারই সুযোগ্য কন্যা, তাদেরকে নিয়ে চিন্তা করছেন। বিভিন্ন জেলায় সেগুলো আশ্রয় প্রকল্প কাজ চলমান, এবং আমাদের রাজবাড়ী কালুখালী উপজেলাটি ভূমিহীন গৃহহীন মুক্ত হয়েছে। এটা আমি মনে করি আমাদের জন্য এটি আশাব্যঞ্জক। আমরা অবশ্যই আছি, আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী, আমাদের কিছু তো দায়িত্ব আছে। তো আমরা এই অগ্রিম সতর্কতাকে যেন আরো এগিয়ে নেওয়া যায় সময়ের সাথে, কারণ আমরা মনে করি এখন যুগ অনেক চলমান, অনেক আধুনিকতার, তাদেরকে যদি আমরা সেভাবে সুরক্ষা দিতে পারি, এটা আমাদের জনগণ, তারা আমাদের থেকে বিচ্ছিন্ন কিছু নয়। বেসরকারি সরকারি পর্যায় থেকে যদি এটি আরো এগিয়ে যায়, আমরা তাদের সুরক্ষাটাকে আরো সমৃদ্ধ হতে পারে। এগিয়ে যায় বাংলাদেশ, এগিয়ে যাবে, এটি আমাদের দৃঢ় প্রত্যয়। জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, বাংলাদেশ চিরজীবী হোক।
ধন্যবাদ মাননীয় এমপি, অনেক ধন্যবাদ আপনার বক্তব্যের জন্য। আমাদের ফাইনাল প্যানেলিস্ট যিনি আছেন, উনি সৈয়দা ইয়াসমিন, উনি কুড়িগ্রামের একটি এনজিও আফাদ, Association for Advancement and Development, probably, but I might be completely not getting the name right, so my apology for that. But Sayyida Yasmin, she's heading that organization in Kurigram, and has been working with UN Women for the last 4 years, and she's a leader on her own rights, fighting for women's rights and women responsive disaster risk reduction and climate change in Kurigram area. So over to you, Appa. We really are running behind the schedule. So Saida Appa, earnest request to you to limit your speech within 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Saida Appa.
Thank you, moderator, for giving me the opportunity. And I have no presentation, but I'm trying to summarize my session. Association for Alternative Development is a women-led CSO based in Kurigram. You know, the Kurigram district is the most vulnerable and flood-affected area. Since the 5 years, we are working with UN Women, KitchenAid, Oxfam, and Martejar International. We have experience on DIDRR from working with them. Gender perspective on early warning system. As the women-led CSO, we try to give the information before flood. We organize the regular community and group meeting on inclusive early warning system for their awareness raising, where they can know about it and take the action. Like the miking, use the community mic flag demonstration, and water marking pillar, hotline number use, etc. And before flood, we organize the emergency volunteer training, that is the SRE training for their preparation. And we organize the UDMC and Ward Disasters Management Committee meeting for inclusive early warning sign demonstration and awareness raising in the community and the flood shelter situation. And especially we aware about the most vulnerable people, such as women and women with person with disabilities, adolescent girls, marginalized communities, pregnant mother, for their safety and security at all. And regarding this issue, earlier we have installed for their safety and security 18 flood resilience model house and 5 flood resilience women-friendly space from their humanitarian response to take the shelter at the time of flood, we just give the information for the community. We also disseminate the message through leaflet, Facebook, and poster at the community meeting, and we have the contingency plan before the flood. We at the organization level, we sit together to review the plan. This type of events under the gender perspectives of early warning system, as a women-led CSO, we try to take this type of initiative before the early warning in flood-prone area. So thank you so much, Apa. I try to myself to within the 5 minutes, but it's really difficult for us because we in this type of events we try to speak something about the situation, about the scenario in this area, but it's difficult for us because the time limit. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saidapa. I completely agree with you. As I was saying to the other panelists, it's really difficult to limit our sharing of our experiences, very long and rich experience within 4 to 5 minutes. So thank you all very much.
খুব সুন্দর করে এটাকে গুছিয়ে বলেছেন, অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ সে কারণে।
Saleh, I think, yeah, okay. So thank you all very, very much for all the 4 panelists for enriching us by sharing your experience and your recommendations.
অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ আমাদের পার্টিসিপেন্টরা।
So thank you all very much. Over to Maud.
Yes, thank you very much, Dilruba. I don't know if we have maybe little time for some questions. I can read some of the questions that were in the chat, and I would invite all the distinguished speakers to maybe help us answering them. So one of the first questions we received was
Maud,
about
Maud, just to quickly say that people who are willing to talk, you can raise your hand also.
Yes.
And we can unmute you and you can ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, for sure. For example, Atika Khan, maybe you want to have the floor and ask your question live, or can I just read it?
Maud, I think the people who have already written their question, we can answer them in the chat box.
Okay.
But if there is, in addition to that, if there are people who want to, ask questions, they can raise their hand now, and we can unmute them and let them ask the question.
Okay. So does anyone wants to ask a question? I do not see any hands, so I guess that we are
okay. Then in that case, maybe we can
Dilrupapa, I have
Yeah.
already answered in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But still there are, I think, 7 questions. The ones which have been answered is not there anymore.
By
Kazi Rabea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello.
Unmute yourself.
Hello, Papa. It's been a long time seeing you. So my question is my project is Shufal, and we are working with the monsoon flood at the northern region of Bangladesh. So, and our project is focusing on focus-based financing and action. So you can understand how important early warning system is for us. So, but while working, we have community women groups, but while working with them, we found that their access to information, I mean the early warning systems or the climate information, is very poor. As you can understand, we are focusing on the very rural areas, remote areas. So what we are doing is we have selected some of the women leaders to receive the voice message services. and they are the person to disseminate this voice message services to other people in their community. But there are sometimes trust issues. So, well, women is disseminating this information. Are these real? I mean, there are trust issues within the communities. So what is your suggestion regarding this? How we can strengthen their leadership capacity regarding disseminating this early warning information, or improving their access to this early warning system? So this is my question to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very trust issue is a big issue. And I think in our study, some findings have already come. Maybe Kayum Bhai, if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, a very important issue is raised already. You are right, absolutely, that in the study report, it is also found, and it is the findings of the study report that trust is very important one. If it is not from the public organizations, so who are generating this information, so this is not a trustworthy one. That is the one problem we are facing. So how to combine this one, these government agencies like CPP, Union Disaster Management Committee, or the mobile phone messaging, how to translate in their own language. The problem is that it is not in the discussion that the language, the people in Cox's Bazar local colloquial language and in standard Bangla, they say it's not understandable to each other group. So in the same way, the vulnerable areas in cyclone and flood, so the language is very important issue. So when there is a message from mobile phone, it may be not understandable to the targeted community. This is the problem. So you will be working in the ground. So you'll be suggesting us how we can solve this problem. But we are trying our level best, and for the government, that how we can resolve the issue and trying. And every time we are stepping forward and reaching to the last mile, as Dilruba said in the outset, that reaching to the last mile. So this is not on any country is totally satisfied with this early warning system, but with the generation and dissemination, both we are going on. And you are our helping hand. So in reaching to the
Kayum Bhai. I think we probably haven't been able to answer very clearly, because as Kayum Bhai said, that it's really the people who are working in the field at the grassroots level like yourselves who actually have better answers. But I'm sure between Ahmed Bhai and Molaida, there are some answers. But can I request both of you, Ahmed Bhai and Molaida, considering the time limitation, to in the chat box, if you could write the answers. Thank you very much. I see one more. I'll take one more question. That's Firdausi Begum. If you could ask your question. Yes, Firdausi Appa. You are unmuted. You can ask your question.
Firdausi?
Maybe she's having connection problem.
I see that.
Yeah, Firdausi Appa, can you hear us?
Okay, then we can invite you then to write your question in the Q&A section or in the chat box, Firdausi, because we cannot hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, in that case, Maud, over to you to invite. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to yield the floor to our honorable chief guest of today, Mr. Saber Hossain Chaudhry, who is a member of the Parliament of Bangladesh and chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So thank you very much for having accepted to be with us today. Before I let you speak, I want to also precise that and inform everyone that Mr. Chaudhry is a global champion for disaster risk reduction and the fight against climate change. He is the former president of the Interparliamentary Union, and he led the motion that declared climate change as a planetary emergency in 2019. So thank you very much for being here, and I let you talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maud. Am I audible? Can you all hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for the very kind introduction. Completely undeserved, but thank you for making it. And I also thank Dilruba Haidar and UN Women, and of course Gobeshona, which is really turning out to be an outstanding platform of research, of innovation, helping us to relook at our policies and allowing us to target the recipients of the various policies that we have in place much more accurately. Let me also thank the keynote presenter. It was an excellent presentation. I was able to come in, I think, just in time, and I've followed it through. And I've also listened very carefully to the panelists who have all made some very insightful comments. So for me, I think, what is very, very important is how do we have the link between research and policy? This is something that I've always been talking about because we do a lot of research in Bangladesh also. And this is, of course, because we are in the front line of climate change, and we know that disasters are increasing in terms of intensity and frequency. So this is really the best place to do research, as far as I'm concerned, because it is research which can be done on the ground, and it is research which can be actionable. So I looked at the various recommendations. Of course, there are some issues which are very pertinent in terms of, it went to the detail of the route that is being used to evacuate people to go to the cyclone shelters. But to me, the most striking part was, how we actually perceive women. And it was mentioned that they are seen just as mere recipients of the messages rather than regarding them as potential agents of change. We know that globally, and I'm sure that's also true for Bangladesh, any disaster that strikes, women are likely to be 14 times more infected than men. And yet at the same time, we know that they are pillars of resilience. So it's not just, I don't think agents of change, the whole concept of resilience, which is integral to risk reduction, comes into play. So how do we leverage that one simple fact in terms of more targeted messaging, in terms of looking at, their social condition? Why are they motivated to move? Why are they not motivated to move? I think these are all very important. And so it goes back to the old, saying that we don't have one size that fits all, or we should not have. So we should look at women, their specific needs, their motivations, their social conditions, and see how we can build on that. And then in the process, also build our resilience. I think that's very important, given that they are, as I've said, pillars of resilience. So I think that's very important. Of course, if you look at the cyclone shelters over the years, they've gone through a lot of changes in design. I myself was involved in a project where we looked at, it was a project, I think, that was funded by the Asia Foundation, and we are trying to look at it in terms of follow the money. And we found that a lot of cyclone shelters that were built were in a terrible state of repair. And then, we tried to find out why women were not moving. One of the things that came out during that time is that they didn't want to leave without their livestock, because the livestock was their means to livelihood. So now you see that the cyclone shelters that we have been redesigned. So the ground level is actually for livestock. And then we have separate facilities for women. We look at their menstrual hygiene and all other issues. So I think we have tried to make the cyclone shelters more women friendly, but I also acknowledge that we have to do more work on this. And of course, if you look at the overall situation, when you look at the SDGs, the overarching ambition is to leave no one behind. And we know that women are always at risk of being left behind. I was at Sharm el-Sheikh for the last COP, and there was this very ambitious announcement by the UN Secretary General where he talked about early warnings for all, and a plan that, within the next 5 years, every person in this planet is going to be brought within the scope of that warning, early warning. So that's very ambitious. So I think that again injects urgency to try and look at the needs separately, assess the needs. And that's what we always try to do. And of course, for myself, I always look at disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation as two sides of the same coin. I know in Bangladesh, we have sort of institutional arrangements that don't always allow us to do the coordination we would like, because one is looked after the Ministry of Relief and Disaster Management, and the other is looked by climate change. So for instance, we had someone talking about the Shufal project. That's a project which is being done under the Ministry of Forest and Environment. But notwithstanding those institutional arrangements, I think it is important that we have this uptake of research and reflected in policy. And I would certainly, any assistance that I can provide in terms of picking up some of the recommendations, whether we incorporate them into the formal, the standing orders on disasters, or even just have rules. I think that's something that can be looked at, but we want this to be actionable. The work that has been done, we don't want it to gather dust and sit in a shelf somewhere. And I think there is great merit in this. And of course, for us, resilience will continue to be a greater challenge now that the greater impacts of climate change are settling in. So this is a very timely initiative, and I certainly congratulate you and women for doing this. The presentation and the comments that we have had from Mr. Ahmed Al-Haq have also been very helpful. I hope he's going to follow it up. And any assistance that we can provide from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I see that one of our members of the committee has also been here. She is always very active and she wants to get involved. So by all means, reach out to us. I think the challenges at the end of the day boil down to how we respond and stand by the people. And when we say all, it is of course men and women. So that gender dimension has to be recognized, and it has to be reflected in our priorities, in our policies, and of course, subsequently in our budget allocation and the legal framework. So congratulations, I think, for a very good event. But of course, the extent to which it is going to be worthwhile will depend on how much we take in terms of policy and how much of this research actually becomes actionable. So thank you, Maud, for allowing me the floor, and also to Dilruba Haider for the kind introduction. I've actually learned a lot, and most of the time, I know it's probably customary and part of the convention that you need to have someone as a chief guest. But I was here more as a listener and trying to see how I can improve the work that I do. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much, sir. I think, we wanted to call you chief guest because we got to learn a lot. We know you have, we all are working in the field, but your leadership has been phenomenal for the country. So we are really honored that you were able to join. I think we are at the very end. Maud, if you let me remind, I think we are at the very end of the program. I am supposed to do some vote of thanks, but it's basically saying that, it's been a wonderful experience. We have heard from the field level, from the grassroots level, we have heard from the government, we're like CPP director, we have heard from the parliamentarians, and everybody agrees that it is a very important issue. And early warning is not just an issue of disaster management, it is actually connected with climate change. As Sabir has just said, that in Sharm el-Sheikh, there was a decision that early warning should be for all, which means both men and women, and reaching everybody in the world is a big ask. But that's where we all are going towards or working towards. So it is an issue that we all agree to work towards, and we are very happy that Mr. Sabir Hossain Chaudhury MP has said that we can approach him and his ministry and the other honorable MP we have today, Ms. Kodeza Apa, everybody. We want to work together from UN Women. We are very committed, and all the other participants who have joined today, we are going to work on this, ensuring that the early warning, meaningful early warning on time reaches the most marginalized so that they can protect themselves and their communities and their families. So thank you all very, very much. A huge thanks to ECAD team for supporting this program for this session, and a huge thanks to UN Women team, especially Modaba and Priyadarshini Obhi to arrange the whole program, and a huge thanks to our panelists and to our chief guest today. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can we stay back for a quick group photo, please?
Yeah. Please turn on your video camera, please.
Yes, please. And smile for the camera.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.